So the Rebbe Avram continues, this other way of understanding the pasuk, that every being in this world, their eyes are turned to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as he says, because this means that you can translate any bitachon that any being has, whether it's a person or a behemoth, and they trust an intermediary. We who do know the real provider of sustenance know that their bitachon, they just don't understand it, but their bitachon is actually HaKadosh Baruch Hu who really provides them with everything. An example of a person who trusts in his parnasa or gufoi, or on his strength, relies on another human being. Obviously, the actual parnasa, the actual wealth that he's garnering, is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Hashem who is protecting him. Whether a person relies on his own bodily strength, it's also coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the pasuk says, Hashem is the one who created him. Hashem who is the one who is providing for him. He is the one that's giving him everything. Therefore, says the Rabbi Avram, the person who trusts and puts his bitachon into any intermediary, that a person can see. In other words, just like this animal who puts his trust into the bucket instead of the person who's feeding him, or instead of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Harehu, technically speaking, says the Rabbi Avram, technically he's relying on the real HaKadosh Baruch Hu is providing, and the real provider is providing him with everything. It's just that whether he knows it or not, that's where he's really relying on, because all the intermediaries that he's relying on cannot work without HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Someone who doesn't understand it, it's just that it's just like he's like a young child who doesn't have any imagination and therefore thinks that it's that the food that he's getting is minion to the it's all from his mother. They're using the same example that Rabbeinu Bachya used in the Chovos HaLevavos. If this child had any seichel, he would know that actually his mother is bringing him food because the father is giving her the money to provide him with the food. And if his imagination would be any bigger, he would know that the father's parnasa is also coming from somewhere else, and so forth, until he'll figure out that parnasa comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As David HaMelech says, what I couldn't figure out when I was young, in other words, David HaMelech said that what's unimaginable is that he had bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu even when he was being fed by his mother. But of course, a person, most normal people who don't have that level of bitachon, what they are is they have just a limited imagination as far as where their money is coming from. However, you could still say that bitachon translates into bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Once you understand this, even though technically an animal, you can say, relies on the bucket that's feeding him or the person that's feeding him. As the pasuk says that the animals know who is feeding them. But technically speaking, he's really relying on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because all these intermediaries that are bringing the animal food cannot happen if not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would make it happen. And therefore David HaMelech says all these psukim that all these beings, including the animals, are technically having bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The intermediary that the animals are trusting to provide them with food are dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is how you can understand any pasuk that refers to the emunah and bitachon that the animals have, even though obviously they don't have the seichel and the das to have bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or people who don't have the understanding to have bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but still you can say that bitachon that they have in any intermediary translates into bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as the Rabbi Avram says, and anyone who understands this will appreciate its beauty. Now this will bring the Rabbi Avram into our next conversation, which will be, once a person knows that he can use the tools of bitachon to get achava sadas, as we discussed, to get his parnasa easily, how should a person look? What type of ishtadlus should a person look for? Have a wonderful day.